Welcome back, everyone, to Figuring Out the Formula. I'm your host, Kyle. I'm here with Chandler and Patrick, as always. And what a weekend it was! It was the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, and it was pretty interesting. We had some things to talk about before the race weekend actually began. As you guys know, that we've been discussing the last couple of episodes about the Red Bull Civil War, if you will. I don't know if it's like Iron Man versus, the Winter Soldier and Captain America, whatever. It it's it's a mess over there. Like they need Marty Huggins to come in because it's a mess. Um, Before we jump into what is actually going on since the last race, let's pour one out for the homies and take a sip ourselves. Cheers, boys.
Yes, sir.
Drinking proper 12, Conor McGregor's Irish whiskey.
There you go.
Decided to go for a little change, and now I'm ready to knock someone out or punch a hole in the wall or whatever. I chase it with a monster or something. Um, my name is Kyle, so I get a pass. But um, someone who doesn't get a pass is Christian Horner. I mean, this dude is fucked. Uh, Pat, there was some information that came out that I mean, this should be in a comic book. So it turns out that Christian Horner and Max Verstappen's dad, Jos Verstappen, might be Eskimo brothers. So before before you explain on what that actually is for those who don't know, let's just focus on the figuring out the formula part, the Formula One. So tell us a little bit about what the hell's going on
Yeah.
with that.
So ooh, this just gets deeper every week.
That's what she
Um,
said.
yeah, 100%.
Yost or Christian?
Yes.
So man, this is just a saga. I can't even process this. So it came out that um essentially I think Red Bull has already paid this woman some amount of money to essentially make all this go away.
This
Um,
woman being the one who accused Horner of sexual harassment in the workplace.
right. Um, and I think she might be doing some separate legal action that hasn't really come out yet. But Red Bull, they did their investigation. They said Horner was innocent, but they still just wanted to make this go away quicker because it's, I guess, cheaper to just pay her than to pay lawyers. And after that, it came out that the woman in question might actually also have had some intimate relations with Max Verstappen's father, of which this guy came out, Max Verstappen's father, Jos, came out and said that he feels bad for the woman and a bunch of this other hullabaloo stuff when this is a guy that like had to get a restraining order from his wife because he was assaulting her when Max was a kid.
Allegedly.
And yeah. Well, let's say allegedly. Um, all that came out, and then even further to fuel this civil war, like I talked about last week with Helmut Marko being on Jos Verstappen's side. There were a lot of rumors coming out that Jos Verstappen could get suspended and or potentially fired, of which we then saw him with I think I forgot his name, the guy that essentially is over Red Bull Racing, and then Horner with all the actual Thai owners of Red Bull itself. So it's just been a bit of a mess. Nothing really came of the Marco thing.
You're forgetting one major development that we saw from last race to this race. So Helmut Marko, he I haven't seen proof, but there's strong like claims that he's been the one that's been leaking all of this information. So whether that be the emails or that, the Google Drive that got leaked to the press and all the F1 team principals, Helmut Marko, I don't know. We ain't fucking journalists here, okay?
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly this is what has happened.
And all the journalists have been basically held to a lawsuit if they do release it or discuss it. So we'll never know.
Yeah, unless someone just says, I mean, Helmut Marko probably has like 10 years left walking around.
With
So
that.
he's old as dust, so he might just say fuck it. Old people really don't old people really just don't care. So, who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, to kind of pivot off of that a little bit of, obviously that was coming out Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, it was announced that he would not be suspended. He would not be fired. But even from the flip side of it, of kind of the civil war we talk about, after all this, all right, is the dust going to settle finally? No, because Christian Horner comes out and the lunacity, the like just how lunatic of a man he is to sit there.
Lunacity, bro. That's a fucking medicine for sleeping issues.
Really?
Okay, I don't know. It sounds like it, doesn't it?
It does sound like cough medicine or something.
Now, I digress.
Okay.
Christian Horner comes out and says that after that day, that it doesn't matter who leaves the team, that Christian Horner himself is the person who built Red Bull to be what it is. So Helmut Marko could go, Max Verstappen can go. And in my eyes, and probably y'all would agree with me a little bit, he even said that if Adrian Newey left Red Bull would still be perfectly fine.
Yeah, for this year.
And it says that Red Bull's success would linger on if he stayed because he was the one that built it from nothing.
Yeah. He needs a taste of humble pie because
I'm telling you.
I'm not saying Horner is a bad principal because he's not. But at the same time, Adrian Newey is the reason why you've been so successful. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Anybody else under the bus.
It's an egregious statement. I mean, it's debatable. I could go on about it for like an hour about who actually built Red Bull, but I mean, it's, as you guys can tell to our viewers that are listening, it's a mess. We can't even articulate it properly because it's such a mess at Red Bull right now. And this is, like we said before, this is going to keep going on and on until finally one actual source of information is revealed.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll just have to buy our time, but until then, every race we'll keep updating you guys with what the hell's going on now. This week was Eskimo Brothers. Next week, who the hell knows? I mean, it's literally just exploding from here, but explosions. Boys, this is going to be a hell of a segue, but a Ferrari driver's appendix exploded basically. So he had to get it removed in the middle of the race weekend. Carlos Sainz, he had appendicitis. So he was unable to take part in qualifying or the race. Chan, who took his place and why is it significant?
Mr. Ollie, it says Oliver, but he went by Ollie. Ollie Behrman from the United Kingdom. Formula 2 driver right now, Ferrari reserve driver took his place. Interesting kind of looking forward, like looking in to see how he does, because it's like the old Doofenshmirtz thing of like, if I had a nickel for every time this happened, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's really odd that it's happened twice, is that in 2022, Alex Albon had appendicitis and couldn't race at Monza, in which Nick DeVries, the reserve driver for Williams and Mercedes, stepped in and raced and got points in there and ended up leading to him getting a seat in Formula One. Now, granted, that didn't last but about 4 or 5 races. Really less than that if you added up the total amount of laps he completed. But
yeah, now he owes money.
Yeah. So he's fine. He's off at Harvard now. So kind of want to see, how does he fare? Because let's also be honest, in 2022, the Williams car was not great. And so for DeVries to get points or something, but Ollie stepping into a Ferrari that is a notorious points getting machine, how is he going to fare? I don't know. There may have been some other stats. I know the funniest thing that I saw was like the lack of use of commas by the F1 broadcast, where it basically was like some long drawn out to say that it was like, who's wearing the number, was he 11? I think. No, he's not 11. It was like
he was 38 or 35 or something.
So it was like saying that he is it's basically supposed to say he was like the 976th driver in Formula One, the 70-something driver for Ferrari, and the 30 or the 20-something driver to have number 38. But they didn't use any comments, so it just made it say like he's the 967th driver in Formula One to be the 77th driver for Ferrari and like the 20th, like to be the 20th person. Yeah, it was something like really odd and off. That's just like, not
It hurts your brain. Yeah.
yeah. So that, I don't know. You were trying to segue to another like factor historical, but that's kind of where we're at. It's like, hey, we're seeing it again, but this is a potential
Yeah.
future F1 race. And to kind of is that he's had to step into the seat. He had just taken pole in the Formula 2 to be on pole for the race on Saturday for Formula 2, and now he's stepping into race in the Formula 1 race.
Yeah. So before we get into how he qualified and all that, Ollie, I did see a fun fact as well during the broadcast, and it said that Fernando Alonso won the Spanish Grand Prix the day that Ollie Bierman was born. It's like
That's wild.
that's so wrong. That's awesome for Fernando, but like, what the fuck? This kid's, he's 18 years old. I mean, good for you, dude. Like, I really hope it's not the case of DeVries,
Yeah.
I don't think it will be. I think he's way more talented, but I think it's pretty funny to look at and see those stats.
It'll be interesting to see when he replaces Nico Hulkenberg at Haas next year.
No, I don't think he'll do that. I think he'll buy his time. I mean, so he's a part of Ferrari Academy. So there's only a handful of teams he can go to. But I mean, we talk about all the time, like, I don't see Bottas lasting much longer. I really don't. So is Carlos Sainz going to go from Ferrari and downgrade to a feeder team basically? Or there's a lot that can happen. But what happens is in this weekend, Ollie actually qualified in 11th. So he had a shitty Q2 where he's like, oh, well, I fucked up the first push. That meant the tires were messed up for the last push. So he was unable to actually get the quickest time that like Charles Leclerc ended up qualifying second in the same car, basically. Well, poor Ollie. He's like, okay, I'm disappointed in myself. I know I could have gone better. It's like, bro, you got the call to come race Formula One like 8 hours ago. F2 to F1 is a huge difference. Like,
So he had a grand total of an hour in the Ferrari car on the track. Yes, he knew the track again, like I mentioned about F2, but in the Ferrari car, getting acclimated to the car more than anything.
yeah, it's crazy, but good for him. Qualifying, like I said, like Max finished on pole for qualifying. Then you had Charles Leclerc. He came in second place. So these Ferraris are pretty quick. I mean, they're qualifying machines. It's just the race pace isn't really there. Pat Checo came in at third. All these qualifying efforts, they're great and all, but what really comes down to it is the race day. I mean, that's where you score your points. You don't score them during qualifying. To start out the race, Pierre Gasly was communicating with the team on the box saying like, hey, I think I'm having gearbox issues. Well, there's a rule, explain it a little bit, but the team could not respond to Pierre. So he did burnouts and all this other stuff. Explain the significance on what the rule is and why it mattered in this scenario.
Yeah, so in F1 on the formation lap and leading up to the actual race start, the teams can't actually communicate with the drivers. So if there's any actual issue, it's kind of up to the drivers to tell somebody if there's something serious, or up to the marshals to tell, oh, hey, there's actually something going on with that car, so they can have a delayed start like we saw last year at Monza after Yuki Tsunoda broke down. But in this instance, Pierre Gasly was basically just a sitting duck. And given that his gearbox was messed up, I mean, Alpine's terrible, so they're at the back. But if you're, say, at the front of the grid and all of a sudden your car just dies, that's actually like a pretty big safety issue, because people are trying to swerve around you, and other cars behind them may not be able to tell, oh, why is this person swerving, and then just run through the back of you. But Alpine is poverty, so they were already at the back of the grid. So it really, didn't cause anything dangerous.
The medical car might have hit him. That's it. That's
yeah.
the only thing.
Yeah. I mean, the guy waving the green flag in the back probably could have ran faster than the Alpine.
Yeah, for sure.
This week's episode of Alpine stinks. We don't even get a full lap through the race for them.
Yeah, it's 100. Like their 100 race plan. That's not to the top. That's to the bottom. It's going pretty well right now.
It's going the opposite direction of what you want to see. There were some things that, like, I don't think I've ever seen, but I definitely have done in F1, like 22 or 23, whatever, right? Like the Formula One games. So apparently there was a jump start that went on. Now, speaking as someone who gets ahead of himself, and I'm pretty sure those lights slow down, you know, they're I know they change the sequence every time, but I don't know. Lando Norris allegedly jumped the start. So I didn't even notice it. I just thought he had a shitty start at first, but then they showed the replay and George Russell bitching on, his radio about, oh, Lando, he jumped the start.
It was funny because my man hadn't even gotten out of his grid box, and it was lights go off, beep beep beep, go off, jump start Norris. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, is it the guy from like the Disney Channel show Recess, where it's just like the
Yeah.
like that's George, that was
Oh.
Jump start Norris. Got him. Like
Some
even
fucking
though-
Weasley.
it
I
wasn't-
hate him so much.
Yes, it was a jump start. Yes, it looked like a jump start because he didn't.
He
It
did.
looked like
He moved.
Yeah. And the reason we're saying that it looked like or he did is that so the FIA puts these transponders in every car, and that detects movement. For some reason, I've heard, I don't know if I've confirmed it, but some people are saying that the transponder in Lando's car was broke. I don't, like I said, I haven't confirmed that, but anyhow, for some reason that the transponder in Lando's car did not register any movement prior to the lights going out. Either he timed it so perfectly that he fooled everybody and including himself because he came to a stop before he restarted, or the transponder did not pick up movement. Anyhow, it caused a horrible start for Lando because he did have that temporary pause and then got off late. Some people say that that's why the FIA didn't do anything. But then again, last year, Esteban Ocon got an hour worth of penalties for not being lined up in the grid box and still like being ahead in the grid box and still losing stuff off the start. So
I think the more realistic answer is that the transponder did not work because they can't punish him for the transponder being broken, right? Because there's no evidence. The FIA is very evidence-based now because they get so much flack for not being consistent in their rules. Well, if you're using evidence and technology, then okay. But if that technology doesn't work at one point, then ain't shit the driver can do, Now he might have timed it perfectly, and if he did, great. But like you said, he had a shitty start, so it didn't really end up making the difference at the end. But moving from Lando, we when it rains, it pours. So Aston Martin Racing, we've talked about it. It's daddy's money, and the son, Lance Stroll, he really is dog water. I don't know another way to say it. Yeah, he sucks. He hit the wall like during qualifying. It didn't damage the car too bad. Like he was able to keep going, that kind of thing. Of course, he didn't do great in qualifying because he fucking hit the wall. But in the race, he's all by himself. He's just riding like at this point, you're just logging laps, right? Like after the initial start of the race, so the first 2-3 laps, you're trying to get out, right? After that, like towards lap 4, 5, 6, this guy is just running and boom, clips the inside of the wall. Like, hey, Tweedle dipshit, what the fuck are we doing? Like, you can't hit that thing.
I mean, it was literally a rookie mistake that not even a rookie made. I mean,
No.
it was 5 laps into the race and he taps the left wall and then flies all the way over into the right wall.
So that wheel, we are at the highest, fastest street circuit. It was just a tap, but my goodness, that left wheel just was like
it got mangled.
Alex Dahlquist diagonal walk.
And the best part for me was like I said, I couldn't hear the broadcast from where I was watching, but you can just see them put out the notes from his engineer calling. He's like, "Oh, hey, you crashed. Like, can you bring it back to the pits?" And Lance comes back and he's like, "No, I'm in the fucking wall." And it's just like, all right, dude, he's an amateur, totally amateur.
Dude, his leg, his car looked like Kevin Ware's leg from back in the day.
Oh
that shit
God!
just sent,
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
like, but it's a perfect comparison. Like his suspension. I mean, it was
Shout
just
out March Madness. That's a sight that we don't want to see. There you go. We'll go ahead and cuss it off. We can go cuss now because it's just explicit thinking about that injury.
well, whatever it is, it's like, dude, you can't handle a simple we're not even at the end of the race where you might be tired or overheated or like, bro, this is like within lap 7, like before lap 7, and you're already making these mistakes. Like it wasn't on a pass or anything. It's like, dude, if your dad didn't sign the checks, you would not be here. Sorry, hate to tell you, but I actually don't. I don't know. I think that accident kind of screwed a lot of people up though. Like their whole race plan, it screwed it up.
Yeah.
This, like I said, this was, around lap 5. So lap 6, 7, you had cars coming in to the pits for their pit cycle, From this point in the race, most people started with the medium tires. Well, if you put on a hard tire, you can make it the rest of the race. Well, that's what almost everybody did. Almost everybody. Not everybody, but most people did. Except, I don't know about you guys, Chan, this was probably the most chaotic pit cycle I've seen in quite some time.
It was just the build up to it of seeing, because obviously in Bahrain we did not have a retirement, we didn't have a safety car. So since the last season we haven't had a pit stop cycle under a safety car, a virtual safety car. And see, at this point it was just enough where some of the teams were spread out enough where they could double stack on top of this. And seeing all 10 of the teams pit crews lined up ready to go, and just like a tapestry of cutting in and out of all the cars is just like, it made me nervous. And just to be like, it made me nervous for the pit crew members, like not even the drivers, because everybody's coming in, cutting out, and just, it was so pleasing to watch.
Yeah.
Until you went back and saw the replays, and there was, it wasn't a perfect orchestra symphony of weaving in and out perfectly. There were a few unsafe pieces.
Yeah, someone always gets fucked, right? You can either get fucked by your team turns the light green and you pull out and it's not green, it's red. There's a car in the way. So you get an unsafe release penalty, like what happened with Checo and what happened with K-Mag. You could also be like Charles Leclerc and get screwed by, okay, my team didn't turn it green. So I have to sit here while another car passes me. Oh, look, another car passes me. It's like, well, can I fucking leave my pit stall? Like I have my tires on, let me leave. So you're just waiting. And I bet those 3 seconds turns into 6 seconds. And I'm sure it feels like a fucking eternity. I mean, I don't know. It's like you said, normally it's a pretty good orchestra, but this one, it looked like a feeding frenzy.
Yeah, and like you said, Checo got an unsafe release. He about took out the other Aston Martin and Fernando.
Realistically, I don't think it was that close. Fernando did have to brake, so that's why it was an unsafe release. I don't think it was. There's been closer.
First, it'd be the first pit stop cycle of this season. That's probably going to get called. And like if it comes, well, I was about to say Suzuka, but that's in the spring now. Come, Coda in the fall, like we see something like that, and we're like, we've seen much worse this season. But and then on top of that, I mean, you mentioned Charles and all that stuff, and then even just you want to talk about dog water and smooth brain. Yuki in the warm up laps gets popped with an unsafe release, almost taking out Lando in the warm up laps, which kind of F1. They noted it before the race started, no mention of it, but gave him a 5-second penalty after the race and dropped him down a place. Like he was out of the points anyway, and so I don't remember who he got bumped down behind, but it didn't affect anything in terms of the point standings. But he did get popped with a penalty, and because they had to rescore our fantasy league because of the penalty after the race. But Formula One never mentioned anything about it. So he kind of got a half of an unsafe release for doing it in the warm up laps. Like not the formation lap. Literally, we're just like, hey, go warm the tires up, and then we're going to park you on the grid spot.
That's where my fantasy points went.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little later, but yeah, that makes more sense now. It's hard to believe that shit even happened, but um, since we're talking on the subject of pit lane and all that fun stuff, Kick Sauber, they, I mean, they have literally shit the bed the last 2 weeks. So last race, they Valtteri Bottas had over a minute long pit stop. Fucking terrible. Well, this race, the other driver, Joe Granu, he had he had just as bad of a one. Like I mean, it was. I don't remember what it was. Was it sub a minute or was it right at a minute?
It was, I think, 55 seconds.
Yeah, it was right around a
So
minute.
either way,
I think there
the
was
average pit stop in Formula One.
I think it was the front left tire for some whatever reason. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know if they're just not doing the maintenance on their support equipment. So like the tire guns, like the wheel guns, whatever. I have no idea, but something needs to be checked, double checked. And I guess now triple check.
Practice all off season for this. Like,
I know last
was equipment, right?
Yeah, last week the gun malfunctioned, but they didn't have a spare on them like they should.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to go run and get a gun and come back. This week, I couldn't tell if like sometimes the wheel nuts get like basically soldered on to the wheel because they get so hot. So it's hard to break free. Maybe that's what happened. I'm not sure. So it took them like literally like going at it. I'm not sure because they're not going to release exactly what happened. They're just going to say, oh, he had a slow stop or whatever.
It's probably just a skill issue.
Yeah. I mean, it might be. We don't know.
It's a lost problem, as they say in golf, a lack of effing talent. But
it's an ID 10T error.
Yeah, I plead the fifth because I can't golf and I can't be a pit crewman. So I'm screwed. But who's not screwed is Max Verstappen. Dude, I mean, he wins. Yay. I'm so excited.
What was the gap this week? 26 seconds?
Yeah, I mean,
something like that.
What a shitty performance. He didn't even lap half the field. Like, that's like what fucking everyone's talking about, oh, he's the best. Yeah, he's the best driver ever. Oh, this car is the best car ever. Well, he didn't even lap half the field. So talk to me when you pass second place, when you lap second place. All right.
There you go, Kyle. Let's put you on the spot for Australia already. Like, all right, tell me how many seconds you think he wins by in Australia, assuming he wins.
Assuming he wins.
Yeah.
Probably Australia, you could separate pretty good. So probably 40 seconds.
All right. We'll keep that in mind whenever we watch Australia.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, he's probably going to end up in the turn one wall.
The track is upside down. So
yeah,
it's going to be a little bit harder.
That's right. It did last year. Safety car. So that's how it's going to end this year.
Well, Max did not lap second place, but this past race, second place was Checo, as it was last race. And then in third place, we had Charles Leclerc. So, like I said earlier, like Ferraris are really good qualifying cars. Like they keep up with the Red Bulls, but they just don't have the race pace. Now, something we talked about last year was Ferrari was always fucking up the strategy one way or another. This year, we haven't seen it yet. I highlight yet because where there's a will, there's a way. So we just need to keep an eye out on that. But moving from the race results where Max won, Checo second, Charles Leclerc third, our picks. So Chandler ended up getting the correct picks this week with first and second place. He picked Max and Checo. Pat and I both got third place, just picking the winner, Max Verstappen. So right now, the overall total is 8 points for me, 8 points for Chandler, 6 points for the idiot, Patrick.
Okay.
So
buddy. I'll write that one down.
Yeah, take a screenshot if you need to, but either way, nothing compares to the fantasy league that we're all in. So we're getting into, there might be some gaps in your lineup, that kind of thing. it's interesting to see how it's going. Well, we called out Chase last week, and Mary Margaret is convinced that it's an AI.
We
And
look,
and
we've said it
he,
on
they,
last,
them, we shall, I don't care what it is, might be AI.
we said it on last week's episode. I posted a picture of the results after week one, and we said it here like Chase, like just react to the Instagram post so that we know
Something.
it's real. Nothing online. So we're gonna do it again this week. This is Wednesday night we're recording. I will be Thursday morning posting the results because there has been some lockdowns. I mentioned some rescoring and stuff. I posted the results. Chase, you officially have until next race week to respond. If not, you are assumed a bot, and we're just not going to acknowledge you in first place anymore.
Yep. So, Chase, if you're here, make sure you respond, make sure you comment, like, subscribe at Figuring Out the Formula. Whatever it is, do
Just say,
something.
hey. And then if you acknowledge it and you're real, then we'll acknowledge you every week that you win.
Call Pat a pussy. It doesn't matter. Just say something. You know what I mean? But right now, the current standings in first place is Chase. I don't, whatever, if you're real or not. Chase has 1,807 points. Well, something I want to do is not just motivate people to get first place, but motivate people to not get last place, because the last place, you really are a loser. Like, I mean,
Yeah, you really get the short straw, if you will, for last.
yeah. I mean, it's enough to make a grown man cry, even one below 5 feet. Below 5 feet reminds me of our last place finisher. So, Drew, you know who you are. I won't say your last name. You have 1,300 points. So, whether you're a late bloomer or what, I'm not sure. Just keep trying, do some more research, listen to Figuring Out the Formula. Yeah, listen to Figuring Out the Formula, and for the love of God, get rid of Logan Sargent. No more free advice. If you need advice, $400 an hour, comment, whatever, it doesn't matter. That is,
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, Drew, just you can pick up to 5 drivers. You don't have to just have 4 drivers, and those 4 drivers be Logan Sargent, Daniel Ricciardo, and then Lando and Max.
Yeah. Well, enough of free advice. Get out of last place. Do something. We believe in you.
And full disclosure for anybody that's listening and hasn't joined after the first 2 races, you can still join. What we learned this week is that this past race weekend is that if you join right now, it will basically automatically bump you up in a tie for last place. So right now you can join Drew about 3.5 feet up off the ground from the bottom floor, and you'll start out at 1,300 points. So I know that we had a couple of late joiners who didn't join in the Bahrain Grand Prix, or they joined after the lineups had locked, so they didn't pick drivers. But in one weekend, they were a week late and they're already beating Drew. So, step your game up, son.
Yeah. So only way is up. So make sure you join. And that is also Figuring Out the Formula. The next race is the Australian Grand Prix. That is not this weekend. That is next weekend. But unfortunately, like Pat said, it's the land down under and their clocks are flipped. So qualifying is going to be next Saturday at 1 a.m. So that's Friday going into Saturday at 1 a.m. The race is Saturday going into Sunday at midnight. So we got a late one, boys. I know you guys aren't very dedicated nowadays, so you're probably just going to record it. If you stay up, I'd be surprised. I'd be happy, but I'd be surprised.
Are you talking to yourself in a mirror right now?
I mean, well, kind of. It's a camera, so I see. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
but either way, this race is
our 3 Australians. I don't know if y'all have seen the hullabaloo that's gone around. Like all the posters are going up around Albert Park of the F1 Australians with Daniel Ricciardo and Oscar Piastri, and then Valtteri Bottas as the honorary.
Yeah.
So like those are the 3. Like they call them the 3 Australians. So
I love it.
That's what we're working with. So shout out Valtteri.
Well, if this video gets over 250 likes, Chandler is going to shave a little mullet into his head, or a mustache for Valtteri's honor. He's already agreed, so we have proof. don't ask him any questions or anything, but he'll do it. So that is the Australian Grand Prix. Like I said, qualifying at 1 a.m., race at Sunday at midnight. So let's move ahead and make our picks for this race. So Chandler, you finished first this last week. You get to go.
All right, so we're gonna go with Maxwell Verstappen in first. Second place, I'm gonna take Charles Leclerc. Ferrari kind of gets their revenge after last year. And then third place, I'm gonna go with Lewis, in all honesty, just to throw a little different name out there with this.
Well, I like to score points, so I'm gonna go with Max, then Checo, and then Oscar Piastri. I hope he doesn't have a like a hometown jinx. We'll never know. I guess we will when the race happens, but I'm gonna guess that there won't be one. So I might have just caused it. I'm knocking on wood, everybody. Knocking on wood.
I believe he scored points last year in his first race.
I know, but I picked him this time, so he's probably gonna fucking wreck. That's my luck. But anyways, that's my pick. So Max, Checo, Oscar. So we have Chan's, my pick, and now it is your turn, Patrick.
So I'm kind of in the same boat as Chandler. I'm gonna go Max and Charles, and then in third place, I'm gonna go with Checo. Knowing my luck with picking Checo, he's gonna somehow bend into the wall in turn one, but hopefully not.
Hasn't done it yet.
Yet.
Maybe he's due. I don't know.
He's
Like,
warming up.
Due
He's
for a
warming
home
up.
run.
He's preheating.
Yeah. Fair point. Well, everyone, that was the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Thank you so much for listening at Figuring Out the Formula. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'm Kyle. This is Pat and Chandler. And go get them. Go watch them racing.